Hello and welcome to this lecture on poetry, kind of a brief overview on poetry and what it is and all that kind of stuff. Often when people think of poetry, they think of, oh, beatniks, someone who kind of sits in a little cafe, it's dark, and they read some strange words that may or may not make sense, and they pound on drums. No, that's not really, okay, but, that's kind of a typical image that some people have. That's really not what poetry is all about. Poetry's been around for a long time. A better way of looking at poetry is that it's really painting with words. And there's different ways you could do it, just as there's different colors and different ways you can paint. The same is true when it comes to poetry. Painting with words is a great way of looking at it, at least from my point of view. So what does poetry do? Well, some poems can make us laugh, like limericks and such. Some poems can make us think. Some poems are short and funny. Some poems are long and serious. Some poems rhyme. And some poems do not rhyme. I think this is right here. Some people believe that poems have to rhyme. Not necessarily, as we'll find out in this lecture. So, some basic poem terms that you should be aware of. There are couplets, tercets, stanzas, free verse, haiku, and sonnet. We're going to talk about each of these and what they kind of are. Yeah, and I may have pronounced this one wrong because I don't really use it that often. Tercets, couplets, tercets, anyway. So, couplets. Couplets are basically lines that rhyme back to back. So if you're thinking about a poem and the lines rhyme, kind of back to back, that is called a couplet. For example, I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Notice how ham and Sam, okay? Ham rhymes with am. Therefore, that is a couplet. I do not like them in a boat. I do not like them with a goat. Again, the last word rhymes exactly. And there's two of them back to back. So that makes it a couplet. Couplet is two. I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. Again, another couplet. So this is an example of a poem that uses the couplet format. Okay, tercets are basically like couplets except for they have three lines that rhyme back to back. So instead of just two, you have three. Let's give an example. The students in English 113 closed their eyes and began to dream. To wake them, he let out a scream. Yeah, if we were in class, that would make more sense. But 13, dream, scream. Okay, notice how three lines then kind of rhyme, boom, ba-doom, ba-doom. That would be considered a tercet. Yes. Okay, moving on. Stanzas. Well, stanzas are a group of lines forming a basic recurring metric unit of a poem. What? What does that mean? Well, let's see. Stanzas can be any number of lines, not just 2, 3, or 4. Let's go back to this. Look at We Real Cool, right? Now, that's the poem that you were supposed to read before you started watching this. We Real Cool basically is broken up into 4 stanzas, and these stanzas happen to be right here. See, these are stanzas. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, just happens that these stanzas are couplets. Okay, so these are couplets, means that there's each 2 lines rhyme, and just so happens that they all rhyme, except for the last one. You'll notice that it's, so this is considered a stanza. A stanza can have more than 2 lines, it can have 3 lines, it can have 4 lines. Okay, but they're basically broken off into little sections. Those are called stanzas. And we'll talk about this fact that it starts with we at the end. That's kind of weird, right? Okay, we'll talk about that in just a minute. So, yeah, there's that. Okay, now, a ballad stanza intermixes lines that rhyme. And you hear this a lot more in, like, lyrics and stuff like that. An example would be, the pretty girl walked up to me and asked, do you have an iPhone? Yes, I said, as happy as can be. Great, my boyfriend is home alone. Oh, that's just not nice. Okay, but notice here that me and be rhyme, okay? And phone and alone rhyme. So this would be considered a ballad stanza where you have, they don't rhyme back to back like a couplet or a tercet, but rather it's me and be and phone and alone. This kind of alternating thing would be an example of a ballad stanza. Now there's all sorts of variations of this. This is just a general overview. Okay, so, and then there's free verse. Okay, we talked about how poems don't always have to rhyme. A lot of people think that poems have to rhyme. Not necessarily. Non-rhyming lines that closely follow the natural rhythms of speech. Again, this kind of goes more with painting with words. I'll give you an example here. Okay, the fog comes on little cat feet. Okay, that's actually poetic if you think about it. The fog comes on little cat feet. There's a certain like beauty to it. Okay, and you can almost see the fog, you know, with little cat feet. Okay, that is an example of a free verse. Okay, let's look at another one. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, and then moves on. Again, this is a poem right there. What? Does any of it rhyme? No, it really doesn't. Okay, but again, it's just this free verse here where it is painting with words. Okay, also notice the way that it's kind of broken up, the way that they've kind of decided, okay, where do I start a new line and stuff like that. That's all part of painting with the words. Okay, listen to this one again. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, then moves on. Beautiful. Okay. Then there's the haiku. Haiku is another form of poetry that's very popular. Okay, it's a Japanese verse form of 3 unrhyming lines. Again, the unrhyming part. 5, 7, and then 5 syllables. Okay, so this is a particular style and format that you will create. Okay, here's an example. Okay, and then the idea here is that it creates a single memorable image. Often it deals also with nature stuff, natural stuff. Okay, here's an example of one. As the wind does blow across the trees, I see the buds blooming in May. Now again, this is a haiku. Doesn't rhyme, kind of got that natural thing kind of going on, but again, it's 5 syllables. As the wind does blow. There's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not just words, but syllables. Across the trees, I see the. There's 7. Okay. Buds blooming in May. There's 5. So 5, 7, 5. Example of a haiku. Okay. Beautiful. And then you have the sonnet. Sonnet is much more of a classical style. It's a 14-line poem with a variable rhyming scheme. Sometimes it uses couplets, tercets, sometimes it uses the ballad stanza, but basically the trick here is that it's a 14-line poem. One of the more popular sonnets is, as an example, how do I love thee, let me count the ways. Have you ever heard that saying before? Okay, well that's actually the opening line to a sonnet. Okay, I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. For the ends of being and ideal grace, I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. Okay, notice right here, again, we've got ways, grace, kind of rhymes with ways, but it rhymes with days. We have light, right, height, sight. See how these kind of intermix? Here's the next part of it. This is only 7 lines, so let's look at the next 7 lines. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with a passion to put to use in my old griefs. And I love my childhood faith. Oh, sorry. And with my childhood's faith. I almost read that correctly. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And, if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. That's beautiful. Again, rhyming is kind of intermixed. Praise, faith, it's kind of this kind of a slant rhyme. I mean, it isn't quite a perfect rhyme, but use, lose, you know, death, breath, choose, also kind of lose. It's kind of like this intermingled style. But again, the thing with the sonnet is 14 lines. That's kind of the trick there. Okay, so also notice we talked about a little bit about with poem formatting. Okay, you have the end stopping and the enjambment. These are 2 different styles when it comes to writing poems. Okay, here's an end stopping example. Okay, I'm going to go back to the screen, eggs and ham. Basically, each line is a sentence. It ends, boom. That's it. There's a period. It's one complete sentence, and it is what it is. It doesn't start a new line or anything like that. It's an end stopping. It stops at the end. Kind of a crazy name, end stopping. Yes. Okay. Where you get the funky one, the funky is the enjambment. Okay. Enjambment, well, as the wind does blow across the trees, I see the buds blooming in May. Okay, remember this? You don't really ever end a sentence with the, okay? Basically, as the wind does blow across the trees, that's one basically line, right? I see the buds blooming in May. But notice they broke it here after blow, and they broke it here after the, okay, as across buds. So they've decided to do this a particular way. They break up the lines at a point which actually adds a little bit of even a visual. I mean, see how this is kind of a visual, just by looking at it, it looks more, I don't know, it's kind of pretty looking, I guess. But also just the way that it makes the thing flow. I would always thought that, someone was drunk, they didn't know what they were doing if they kind of just stopped in the middle. But that's actually a form that's designed to make it more impactful. Again, if we look at We Real Cool, this uses the enjambment points, right? We Real Cool, we. Okay, the fact that it's ending the line with we, right? That's actually the enjambment, right? Because you would think, well, that should be over here, like We Real Cool, we left school, okay? But notice that the we here also helps kind of continue the flow. We real cool, we left school, we look late, we strike straight. It almost adds a sense of continuity, okay, and it just kind of keeps it flowing. And notice here how this is very effective here. We die soon. It doesn't have the we here. Boom, we die soon. That's pretty, like final. Boom. Okay, that's very impactful and very much thought of by the poet to do that soon. Okay, again, like painting with words. So that's just an example of why you would use an enjambment as opposed to the other one. So this lecture is basically, again, designed to kind of help you see, as you look at poetry, again, think of it as painting with words. And again, just as you have different colors, there's different ways you can paint. There are some formats and styles. If you compare it to art, it would be like watercolors versus oil-based versus impressionist versus, stuff like that. So hopefully this little quick lecture will have given you some insight on poetry. All right, thanks.